10 years in a van, and I haven't regretted a single dollar I spent on it, but I've watched dozens of people spend the same money I did and walk away destroyed by it. The difference wasn't the van, it wasn't the budget, it was one decision most buyers never think about until it's too late. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly what separates the people who make van life work long-term from the ones who sell their rig at a $15,000 loss after 8 months. And if you're sitting on $30,000, $60,000 or more right now trying to decide whether to pull the trigger, this is the most important 15 minutes you'll spend before you do. Section 1. The mistake most buyers make. Year 1 almost made me quit. Not because the van failed, because I'd done exactly what every buyer I warn today does. I spent almost everything getting in and left myself no margin for what came next. 3 months in, the water pump failed. The diesel heater started throwing a fault code every third morning, and I was doing the math on whether I could actually sustain this. That was the moment I realized the question I should have asked before I bought wasn't, do I love this van? It was, can I afford the version of this van that breaks? I see that same mistake constantly, and a decade later, it still never changes. Someone researches camper vans for 3 to 6 months. They watch the van tours, they read the forums, they compare the Ford Transit against the Mercedes Sprinter, they get excited about solar setups and composting toilets, and then they buy. Emotionally. They buy the van that feels right in a showroom or the conversion that looks incredible in photos, and they never stop to ask the one question that determines whether they'll still be living in it in year 3. Because every van breaks. I don't care if it's a brand new $85,000 Winnebago Solus or a 5-year-old Ford Transit custom conversion you found on Marketplace. Something will fail. A water pump, a compressor fridge, a diesel heater in January, a slide-out mechanism that jams in a Walmart parking lot at 11 p.m. in rural Oklahoma. The buyers who survive that are the ones who had a cash reserve, a mechanical baseline, and a van they understood. The buyers who don't, and I've watched this happen more times than I can count, are the ones who spent every dollar getting in and had nothing left when reality showed up. What's the model I'm in? A Ford Transit-based conversion. Not because it's the flashiest, because after 10 years, I can fix most of what breaks. Parts are everywhere, and the resale floor on a well-maintained Transit conversion holds far better than you'd expect. We'll come back to that. But first, why do buyers keep making this same mistake? Because dealers are very good at selling the lifestyle, and almost no one is selling the math, and the math is what keeps you on the road. The question that determines if you're still in it in year 3. Section 2. The truth about this life with a real comparison. Let me give you the contrast most channels won't touch. I've met people in $120,000 Class B motorhomes who were miserable and back in a mortgage within 14 months. I've met people in $18,000 used transits who are on year 6 and genuinely thriving. The expensive rig didn't protect them. What protected the second group was understanding what they were actually buying into, not a vehicle, but a cost structure and a lifestyle architecture they'd thought through. Here's the honest breakdown of what year 1 actually looks like financially, because dealers never show you this slide. A $65,000 campervan conversion, let's say a mid-tier transit-based build from a reputable shop, is going to cost you a minimum of $8,000 to $12,000 in the first 12 months beyond your purchase. That's not a pessimistic estimate. That's fuel at real-world van consumption rates. These rigs do not do 30 mpg, they do 18 to 22 on a good day. Campground fees if you're not comfortable with free camping yet. Insurance on a vehicle classified as an RV, your first mechanical surprise, and the gear you thought came with it that didn't. Now, compare that to a $38,000 used conversion in solid condition with a documented service history. Same first-year costs, but you've got $27,000 still in the bank. That $27,000 is your runway. That is what keeps you on the road when the alternator goes at mile 80,000 or the roof vent seal fails during a Pacific Northwest winter. The expensive van isn't safer, it's just more expensive. And for retirees on a fixed income especially, that distinction is the difference between this working and this becoming the most expensive mistake of your retirement. Here's the controversial part. I think most people should buy used by mechanical simplicity and by range. Not aesthetics, not square footage, range, meaning the number of problems that need to happen before you're in real trouble. Maximize that number and you'll still be in your van when everyone else has gone back home. Here's the thing I didn't expect though, and this is the part most people who've done this for years won't say out loud. Around year 4, I realized the biggest reason I was still in the van had nothing to do with freedom. It was because I'd built a cost structure so lean and so understood that going back to a fixed address would have felt like a financial step backward. I wasn't staying for the lifestyle anymore. I was staying because the math had inverted. The van became the rational choice. That's not what the brochure says, but that's what actually keeps people on the road past year 2. The moment the math inverted, and why that's the real reason people stay. Section 3. The hidden cost nobody talks about. This is the part that costs people the most money, and I've never once seen it covered honestly on a van channel. Domicile. Where you're legally from matters enormously to the total cost of living in a van, and most buyers never factor it into their budget before they spend $60,000. In the United States, if you don't establish a legal domicile in a van-friendly state before you hit the road, you are going to pay more than you have to for the rest of your van life. States like South Dakota, Texas, and Florida are the 3 primary options, and the differences between them are significant, not just in taxes, but vehicle registration costs, health insurance options, and what happens if you get into a legal dispute while you're on the road. South Dakota, for example, has no state income tax, low vehicle registration fees, and a straightforward process for establishing residency without owning property. That single decision, made before you buy your van, can save a retiree couple between $3,000 and $7,000 per year, every year. That's not a small number when you're on a fixed income. But here's what most people do. They buy the van first, they're already emotionally committed, they figured they'll sort the logistics out later. And later turns out to be expensive. For European buyers, the equivalent conversation is around your vehicle registration country and the VAT implications of converting or importing a campervan. Buy in Germany and register it in France, and you've got a bureaucratic problem that can cost you thousands before you've slept a single night in the van. The hidden costs in this life aren't usually the mechanical ones. They're the administrative ones, the tax ones, the insurance ones, the ones nobody talks about because they're boring and they don't photograph well. And here's the line I want you to remember from this entire video. The van doesn't trap people. The financial decision they made to buy it does. The domicile decision that saves $3,000 to $7,000 a year and when you have to make it.
Section 4. Who this is actually right for and who should walk away. I'm going to be direct here because most channels are too worried about alienating viewers to say this. Van life is not for everyone, and the people it destroys are usually the ones nobody told the truth to early enough. This is right for you if you have financial margin, not just for the purchase, but for the first 18 months of unexpected costs. If your only cushion is the van itself, that's not a cushion, that's a liability. You have mechanical curiosity, or you're willing to develop it, not skill, curiosity. The willingness to learn why something broke, watch the YouTube repair video, and at least understand what a shop is telling you when they hand you a $900 estimate. You don't have to fix everything yourself. You have to not be helpless. You've actually tested the space, not a weekend trip, not a rental, 60 to 90 days minimum in a vehicle of similar size, because the people who discover at month 4 that they need more than 65 square feet to maintain a relationship, those people are selling at a loss. You're genuinely okay with uncertainty, not romantically okay with it, like you've convinced yourself in a coffee shop. Actually okay with not knowing where you'll sleep Thursday, with plans that change because weather changes, with the fact that this life does not optimize for stability. Now, who should walk away? Anyone buying this as a hedge against a life they haven't decided to leave yet. If you're still hoping van life will make the rest of your situation easier, it won't. It will amplify whatever you're already carrying. Anyone whose budget requires this to work financially from day one, If the van needs to generate income to justify itself immediately, whether that's through renting it out or because you're betting on dramatically reduced living costs that may not materialize, you are over-leveraged before you start. And, retirees specifically, if your health situation requires regular access to specific medical infrastructure, do the math on that before you romanticize the freedom. Freedom and access are sometimes in tension. Know which one you need more. By year 7, I knew exactly which category I was in. And the people I've watched fail were almost always the ones who knew too. They just didn't want to hear it before they spent the money. The only type of retiree who should not do this, and why most channels are too scared to say it. Here's where I land after 10 years, and I'm not going to soften this. Van life works. It works financially, it works logistically, and it works as a long-term lifestyle, but only for the people who go in with clear eyes and adequate preparation. For everyone else, it is an expensive, emotionally painful lesson that costs between $15,000 and $40,000 to learn and leaves them worse off than when they started. The industry around campervans, the dealers, the conversion shops, the influencers, has a financial incentive to tell you the romantic version. Nobody gets paid to tell you what happens when it goes wrong. That's exactly why I will. 10 years later, I don't think van life is overrated. I think people are buying it for the wrong reason. If you're chasing freedom, buy a van. It delivers. If you're chasing happiness, don't. A campervan magnifies who you already are. If your finances are unstable, it makes them more unstable. If your relationship has cracks, the 65 square feet will find every one of them. If you're already clear on what you want from your life, it's one of the most rational living decisions you can make at almost any income level. The people still on the road after a decade didn't get lucky. They got honest with themselves before it cost them everything. That's the only thing separating them from the people who sold at a loss and went home. If you are serious about this decision, and spending $30,000 to $100,000 means you should be serious, pressure test your assumptions before you spend the money, not after. Model the real costs. Research domicile before you buy. Test the space before you commit. And buy a van that leaves you enough financial runway to survive what you don't know yet. Nobody gets paid to tell you what happens when van life goes wrong. That's exactly why I will. One question before you go, and I actually want your real answer in the comments. If you're seriously considering van life right now, what's the one thing you're most afraid to get wrong? The money, the logistics, or whether you'll actually like it after 60 days? Tell me below. I read every comment, and your answer might become the next video.